Good evening, everyone. We want to value everyone's time here, so get started as close to 6 o'clock as possible. Thank you so much for joining us. We are going to start the recording now, so we can post this webinar for future use as a reference tool. So I'll give Ms. McGinnis a second to click that record button. Okay, great. Welcome to our 2025 high school course selection presentation. My name is Patrick Sassy. I'm the high school principal. Joining me is Kate McGinnis and Casey Rogers. Ms. Rogers is our brand new team member as our counselor for last names L through Z. And we're super happy to have another strong counselor join our already fabulous guidance counseling department. So you'll hear more from both of our counselors this evening. Just a quick overview. This evening is not the time where we select classes or things of that nature. This is just an information share, and this is information that you'll hear repeated throughout the process of course selection, both with the students, and parent information as well, to make it as smooth as possible, so our students can select the classes that they're interested in for next school year. Before we get started on that, I'm going to start with two quick slides as a pitch to our parents and our guardians here. We have a wonderful parent-teacher forum, and any opportunity that we can to promote the great work that they do, we want to take it. So I'm not going to read the slides to you, but our PTF does wonderful work in our community and for our school, our students, and for our staff. So some of the activities they've involved themselves with have to do with graduation celebrations, Staff Appreciation Week, and the like. So if you have interests in joining in or finding a way to help out with a great idea, or volunteering your time, or donating items for any of those activities, please reach out and join in any of our meetings, and just lend your time. The second slide has some of those options there: joining our meetings, supporting our fundraising efforts. And there's more information available. If you wanted to contact anyone on our board, you can reach out to the Gmail account that's listed right there. All right, so back to our course selection. Our timeline has already started somewhat with our teacher course recommendations. This is just one facet of our course selection program. Our teachers in the math, science, social studies, and English departments, along with world language at the level 3, 4, and AP levels, make recommendations for, based on what they're seeing, this year from students, for what they recommend for levels and course selections for next year for the students. And students have the opportunity to work with their counselors to then, select electives and fill the rest of their schedule in with their choices. So that process is already finished up. Our teachers did a great job with that. And in a lot of cases, they have those conversations and kind of talk through with the students what they're thinking as well. We also already hosted an AP course expectations assembly, essentially offering to any student who is thinking about joining an AP class next year to come down and just hear more about it, to understand kind of the rigor behind a lot of the courses that are out there, just to kind of learn more, to really kind of give some of the tips that will come along with those college-based courses, so they can make a really informed decision before loading their schedule up, or feeling like they maybe didn't want to take one. We want to make sure they have all the information they need to make an informed decision before deciding on advanced placement. Our course planning night is happening right now, and again, this is just a webinar that we're going to post with this information a little later. We're starting up with course selection, first with our 9th graders, then 10th, 11th, and then we'll go into the middle school later in February, to work with students one-on-one with our counselors in their science or English class, to talk with them, get to know their interests, get to know what they're looking at, what they'd like to take, and really build their verification sheets and their schedule interests from there. Later in March, we'll have verification forms available in Sapphire, which is essentially a listing of that they have first choice and backups ready to go for our counselors to start going to work, and then I could start building the schedule from there. And finally, in early April, we'll have the last day to make course changes with their counselors, so we can start building the master schedule. We say that last day with limited to no changes beyond that, only because we have to align our resources, our staff, and really kind of make sure that we have what we need in place to build that master schedule. So having wholesale changes beyond that date and certainly going into the summer is really tricky to work through for any high school, let alone one our size. So we're looking at April 4th is our last day for changes. Our graduation requirements, as many of you know, have slightly reduced this year. We used to be at a graduation requirement of 28 total credits. We are currently operating under 26 current earned credits for graduation, and the distribution list is as follows. The area where the credits were decreased were mathematics went from 4 to 3, and science went from 4 to 3. The science requirements for courses are biology, chemistry, and physics. And in both areas, it's strongly recommended for students to speak with their counselor to have a good understanding of what maths or what sciences may be best aligned with their future plans. We have a 0.5 credit available still for college and career planning, which is most regularly housed in our 9th grade. And we have a 0.5 credit for Apex, which is a senior, basically a senior project, a senior activity only. We have 9 credits for electives, and the last line is not yet in our schedule, but we're posting it there kind of as a heads up that it is coming. The state of Pennsylvania is requiring for the school year 26-27 and beyond that half a credit of financial literacy be a graduation requirement for all Pennsylvania public high schools moving forward. So we'll be planning for that for inclusion into our course program of studies next year.
Thank you. Okay, so these are the main recommended credits for students. And again, this is updated with the reduction to 26 credits that are now needed for graduation. So this is just kind of a guide for our students. We as a department sat down and tried strategizing, which credits, how many students in what grade would be best fit. And obviously, we definitely recommend that 9th graders take a minimum of 7 credits, but also kind of a maximum of 7 credits, which allows for a full year study hall. And that's throughout the whole year. They would have a block of time where, on an A day or a B day, that they could have a study hall to preview material, work on homework, study, any sorts of things, even if they needed that time to just kind of recharge. But that would be our recommendation for our rising 9th graders. The 10th graders would need a minimum of 6.5 credits. Our 11th graders were recommending having a minimum of 6 credits. And then our 12th graders need a minimum of 6.5 credits. And again, what that really means is it's 6 credits worth of classes and a half a credit of Apex, which is what Mr. Sassi had just mentioned. That's when they get released early. They have a few assignments that they have to do throughout their senior year, but then they get released early for some field experience. Students can always take more than the credits that are recommended here on this slide. We just kind of wanted to let you know the minimum. But again, just for our 9th graders, we don't usually recommend them taking more than the 7 credits. And the reason being is, usually there's time throughout the career for them to get in all of the classes that they want. And we just want them to get acclimated to the 9th grade and the high school. It's a much different feel, a lot more independence. And we just want them to have a good balance when they're with us. But these are the recommended credits for next year. We are also going to be doing these presentations in all of the students' either science or English classes. So we'll work with the students and your child to make sure that they understand what credits we're recommending. Currently, we typically will recommend their core 4 on their, on their request list, which means that they're asking for an English class next year, a math class, a science class, and a history class. And then from there, just, kind of tapping away at getting those electives that are required. We do require a full credit of health. It does not matter what order you take it in, Health 1 or Health 2. It's a state requirement, and you need 1 full credit of PE also by the time you graduate. So we would recommend, a lot of times, our freshmen start getting those classes in their belt, under the belt. So, sorry. Okay. A few notes. This is just for people and students who are planning ahead this year and the future. We are asking them to earn 2 career pathway experiences each year. Sorry, for a total of 8. I'm so sorry. It's getting over the flu.
I can jump in, Ms. McGinnis, if you want.
Okay.
So we have a college and career pathway initiative that's many schools around the nation are taking on. Mrs. Reeder is our college and career counselor and works alongside with Mrs. Rogers and Ms. McGinnis So some of the notes that really align with our course selection and just kind of the everyday working of our students is what you see on the screen here. So our career pathway experiences are credits that they take along to help meet a graduation requirement. These are not classes, okay? They're not classes, they're experiences. So it may be during lunch and learn, or it might be a planned event. For example, coming up just on February 6th is our career fair, which all 4 grades would have the opportunity to experience. So attending the career fair and completing the activity at our career fair would count as a career pathway experience. We record attendance and we record students kind of completing the activities at experiences such as these. So completing 2 of those per year. So if you start in during freshman year, 2 per year for a total of 8 during your time. Since we started it this year, and this is outlined in the program of studies, we have certainly staggered it. So for example, starting it this year, our current juniors are not required to get 8, they're required to have 4, 2 this year and 2 the following year. As Ms. McGinnis made mention of in terms of minimum credits, they're also listed there as for number 2 there, for 7 in freshman year, 6.5, sophomore year, 6, junior year, and 6.5, including Apex senior year. And then financial literacy is coming our way as a 0.5 credit requirement in the 26-27 school year. That will bump our graduation requirement from 26 to 26.5.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so the next slide has a lot to do with the science requirement. So this does not pertain to any of our rising seniors. This is just for our rising 9th through 11th grade students. We are requiring that they take a physical science, and this also helps if they are looking at going to a 4-year school in their future. Luckily, integrated science is considered a physical science. So there's kind of 2 pathways that students can take. One is to begin their 9th grade career taking integrated science and getting that physical science requirement accounted for. They can always elect to continue and take, physics later on in their career at the high school. But this is just one option that students can do. And so they would take integrated science in 9th grade, and then they would move on to biology as a 10th grade student, and then chemistry. Or again, they can take some science classes concurrently, meaning at the same time in the same year. Or again, they can always take a physics or another science elective their 12th grade year. The option 2 for our rising 9th graders would be to start off in biology and then take chemistry, and then at some point their junior or senior year, making sure that they take a physical science such as physics. They are not able to take integrated science after if they start with biology. That's really if they're starting as a freshman. So integrated science is a course which allows students the flexibility to mature in 9th grade. So this is just for some students who just need a little bit of a soft start with their sciences and maybe aren't directly ready for biology. Believe it or not, a lot of high schools in the surrounding areas don't have their 9th graders start with biology. They do that later in their career. And so we are one high school that offers it to our 9th graders, but we just want to make sure that you are all aware that there is another class that they can take prior to taking biology. And then again, if interested, because of block scheduling, doubling up starting in 10th grade does allow flexibility for students that still want to gear toward, a possible science or a STEAM major, but not starting with biology as a 9th grade student. The Scholars Diploma is something that I'm very excited that we're having. This is something that students need to have a minimum of a 3.4 GPA by the time they graduate, passing a minimum of 3 weighted courses, honors or AP. They need to pass a minimum of 4 math and 4 science credits. So again, if you go back to Mr. Sassy's slide a few slides ago, our minimum for students is 3 math and 3 sciences. If students want a Scholars Diploma, they are making sure that they get those 4 full math and 4 full science credits in by the time they graduate. Passing a minimum of 2 credits of a world language and completing 6 career pathway experience credits. We've had wonderful feedback from students about those. And so I know, it's very helpful for them, and it also helps them with their APEX as well. Again, for students who are interested in MBIT, and there's a slide on MBIT a little later in this presentation, we did want to let you know that because MBIT is so heavy in so many of the career explorations, we are able to crosswalk some of those pathway experiences through their experiences at MBIT. So in case they are not able to make some of our mandatory or our lunch and learn pathway experiences, they are able to get those at their MBIT. All right. We really strive to help students, making sure that they are choosing the best fit course level. We talked about this during our AP presentation, and then we will make sure that we talk about this in all of those lessons. We're starting in, again, 9th grade classes starting the first week in February, but we are going to go over the different level of classes. So academic are more, college prep classes in nature. Honors are weighted. They do have a prerequisite for grades, and you can see that right here. Current honors students must maintain an 83 in their honors class. If you are in an academic class and you want to move up to an honors level class, then you would need to maintain a minimum of a 92 in that academic class. And then our AP classes replicate, work that's characteristics of just introductory college courses. We did go over a lot of information. The students have every single AP course we offer, how many hours a week of studying or homework is involved, what the actual AP exam looks like. And we just really wanted to make sure that they are making an informed decision when they're picking their classes for next year with consideration of all of their extracurriculars and their hobbies, and making sure that they still feel like a high school student and they have time to, spend time with their family and their friends, and maybe part-time employment outside of the school day. So we want to make sure that everything is balanced. I know we made sure all students have access to this, and in my presentation for the APs, I did show a difference between how taking AP classes can either help or hurt, and same thing with honors level classes. So I always say there's no crystal ball, there's no definite way of knowing how you're going to do in a class. But that being said, I do feel as though sometimes students think that saying that they have a certain number of honors or AP classes is what looks good on their transcript. And what really matters is the grade that they get and the work that they do in those classes. And I did give them 2 comparisons of one student who had mostly academic classes, and another student who had 3 APs and an honors class, and how the student who had all academic classes actually had a higher GPA at the end of the year because of how they did in those academic classes. So again, we just want students to be well informed, to see the capabilities. If you were working really hard in that college level class, and you're able to do really well, you have an option of earning a 5-point weighted GPA. But again, you just need to take that into account of all the other classes that you're taking and what that looks like. So that has a lot to do with our APs. All right. So again, this is a sample schedule. We recommend students taking the 1 English class. It's traditionally recommended based on their English teacher now and how your child is performing. They're going to make recommendations based on what English class they think they're going to be best suited for next year. Same thing with social studies and math and science. They're going to go on to the next sequence. So if they're in Algebra 1 now, the teacher is making recommendations for what Algebra 2 class that they should be taking. Again, a lot of times students take the PEs and the health early on to get it in. And then as the years go on, that's when they can kind of get into more of those electives that they are interested in. 8 is the maximum number of credits per year, but again, 6 to 7 is the minimum. And so if you are looking at the course selection guide, just so you know, a 1 credit class is considered a full year course. What that means is it runs during 1 period on either an A day or a B day. A half a credit class is just a half year semester. So it either runs from September until mid-January, or it ends it starts a second semester, which is mid-January until June. And then the rising juniors and seniors can take up to 2 full year study halls. And making sure that they have enough credits to graduate. Okay. Selecting AP courses, there was that mandatory meeting on January 13th. For any student that wasn't able to make it, we did make sure we shared out the presentations with them. We went over, the critical course change procedures, which just states that if they decide to make a change in their credit or their class, that it needs to be met with either like a recommendation from a teacher, if there was like a decision with an IEP team or a 504. So we just want to make sure that they're aiming for a challenging but manageable overall workload. And then again, courses that are dropped that don't meet those criteria will either end up with a withdrawal pass or a withdrawal fail on their transcript, depending on what grade they have at the time of that withdrawal. right, summer assignments are posted on the high school website. We also send these out to students in June, right about the end of the year. We make sure that the teachers let us know well before students are released about what classes have what summer assignments. Many of the teachers actually build Canvas courses that start in the summer for summer assignments, but English, math, and certain AP courses do require summer assignments. And we always want students to know that just because they didn't submit or they didn't complete that summer assignment, it does not give them an out to get out of the class then that following fall. They will have to stay in that class and they will have to keep that grade if they did not complete the summer assignment. All right, Miss Rogers, I think you're up.
Okay, so in addition to the in-person courses that are offered at the high school, we also have some cyber course offerings. Obviously, based on popularity and availability, sometimes these can change, but we do have these 5 programs that students can choose to enroll in instead of in person, and that's the Intro to Programming, the Intro to Python, Web Design, AP Comp Sci, and the Creative Writing. Keep in mind these aren't like don't have the direct instruction, but they're delivered via Canvas. Students are expected to maintain all the assignments and keep up with the work and touch base with the teachers when they need extra help.
Thank you. The course request timeline, now is the time. If you actually go to our website, you can see the 2025-2026 course selection guide. I also asked every science and English teacher that we are going to be doing lessons with to share this out with students. Sometimes we'll sit with students and we'll start doing course selection with them, and they'll tell us, we don't know what classes are offered. So we want to make sure that they are shopping now. They come prepared with their questions so that we can answer them during that one-on-one session. We're so fortunate to have that time. It's undivided that they have, with us as their counselor. We can make recommendations for things that they're passionate about, classes. If they want to understand more about their work-life balance, we're there to help them. In February, Sapphire does open for students depending on what grade they are in on certain days, and then the teacher recommendations can be viewed at that time. If your child has any questions about a recommendation, they should speak directly to the teacher that made that recommendation for the level and the placement. As a general rule, again, students need to have a final average of a 92% or higher in an academic course if they want to move to that honors level class, or maintain that 83% if they are in an honors level class. And sometimes we have had a few teachers who have had to reach out to us in the spring because a student had a certain trajectory. Maybe they actually weren't doing well in the beginning of the year, and they had to recommend them for an academic level class, and then they really stepped it up, and now they got that, that average that they needed, and now they're saying, yep, put them in that honors or put them in an AP class. So we want to make sure, that we're celebrating that as well.
When next week, Ms. McGinnis and I will start meeting with the students in those one-to-one meetings, kind of coming to them in their classes, depending on what grade they're in will be the subject we go to. And that's when we'll be able to give them that time to kind of talk to them, give them some background information, and then meet with them. After that meeting, we are also still available for students to come and meet with us if they change their mind, they want to change the order, the priority level of the classes that they pick with us. That's absolutely fine. They can always pop in, they can shoot us an email. We're available, beyond that one-to-one meeting that we do set out for them. In mid-March, we will make the course selection verification sheets available on Sapphire. So you'll be able to log in and see what your students have selected and what they were recommended for. These aren't a schedule. This is just basically a list of the courses that have been selected. And then that's when we can kind of start talking about any changes that you want to make for your student, or if the student changes their mind, you had a conversation with the teacher, things are going to change. After the 4th, we will hold to the critical course selection change procedure, and that if they do not meet those 4 criteria listed here, the failure to meet a prerequisite, a level change recommended by the teacher, a change guided by an IEP or 504, or a request to add a class where you might have had a study hall, we won't be able to process those types of course requests. But prior to that, we will have a little bit more flexibility. Making sure when the students are selecting their classes that they are having the right amount of credits. So all students should have somewhere between 6 and 8 credits when they have their final selections in. And those one-to-one meetings with Ms. McGinnis and I will be very, very critical, because we'll be able to say, hey, you're missing one, or you're missing half a credit here. And we also want them to choose, beyond those original choices, 5 alternate elective courses in case we run into any trouble with full classes or conflicts, because two classes they want are only offered one time. It's really important because while Miss McGinnis and I wear a lot of hats, one of them is not a mind reader hat. So we do not know what, students would be okay with in place of the things that they've requested. And that's just really important when we're building a schedule, that those alternative elective courses are ranked so that we know which ones, we can put in, and hopefully have a seamless schedule when you start with classes that you really, really want. A 1 credit elective is equivalent to 2 half-credit electives. So a 1 credit elective is typically going to run the full year, whereas the half-credit ones will only be for each semester. Each year, students can take 1 full year study hall each year. So they cannot add the study hall to their requests. That will get layered in after the fact once the schedules are built. And it will just do that automatically if less than 8 credits are requested. NBIT offers a lot of programs for our students, a lot of really hands-on career training, career-focused programs. All of their programs are 3-year programs, so you start in 10th grade. So if students are interested in that, they would come in as a 9th grader and complete that application. Just for reference, if you have a 9th grader coming up that might be interested in that, the deadline to apply this year is this Friday. So that would be for rising 10th graders. If there's any current 9th graders interested, they should get that application in, tonight. And you can, students will take their core subjects at New Hope-Solebury High School, and the other half of the day will be at NBIT. We provide transportation, and sometimes that AM, PM, where you start and where you finish is really dictated by the program that you are participating in. As we go through the course selection process, especially as we get towards the summer months, and Ms. McGinnis and I are working on, building schedules and, kind of hand scheduling difficult schedules. You want to make sure that your students are checking their emails, maybe once a week over the summer, just to make sure that we're not trying to reach out to them to say, hey, like, I'm running into a problem with your schedule. Let's talk about it. Also remind them about the 5 alternates, and that they're ranked in priority of the ones that they would most like to have. And then they should also review that course selection guide before our meetings in February. That will be really helpful, because then they'll have an idea of what the classes are, what they offer, and what they're looking to take.
All right, thank you so much. So at this time, we're going to leave it open. You are able to, if you want to type in any question, the chat is available. So we will start answering questions.
There were 1 or 2 questions already posted there. I'm not sure if everyone has visibility for it, but one question was asked about financial literacy and asking which grade level, current grade level would that start with. We're getting bits and pieces from the state PDE, the state education department. So what we're seeing so far is that the class of 2027 would likely be the first one to need that as a graduation requirement. So we're working on where that's going to fit. And we certainly don't want to hamstring any students. So we'll work on putting it into the rotation in a place where it works for them. And it was also asked about, like, is there an existing class already, or like kind of what classes count for that? So far, it's looking like it might be a class that is kind of written specific for financial literacy. It might be like a new ad for that class. The other question was about scholars diploma, and it was asked about it was estimated current juniors would have to earn that total number of 16. And we, just like the career pathway credits were staggered because we started that this year, we're also staggering the scholar diploma ones too. It's all laid out in the course selection guide. So we staggered that to, again, not hinder any students' opportunities to reach that.
Okay, so I know one of the questions asked about foreign language. And so what we are finding is that most four-year schools want to see at least 2 years of the same world language. So sometimes we have students that maybe come in taking French 2, and then they decide they don't want to take French anymore, and they switch over to Spanish. So then they would need to take Spanish 1 and Spanish 2 because they want to see those 2 years of the same world language. For some highly selective schools, though, they are asking to see at least 3 years of the same world language. So it's a little bit hard for us as a department to keep up with all of the different schools and what they're looking for. But I will say, if you and your child are starting to make that list, what they usually do, I mean, you can just contact the school directly. It's a lot different than most 800 numbers when you try to give a call and there's no one that's going to pick up. So long as you call after 9 a.m., someone will pick up in their admissions office, and they will let you know how many years of a world language that they want. They will also let you know if they require physical science on a high school transcript, if they want to see that as well. Mr. Sassy, I'm sorry. The other questions I think it came up a couple times with for our current juniors and seniors with the scholars diploma. Did you want to talk about that next?
Sure. Yep. Yeah. That's just reiterating that they are all eligible for scholar diploma, and because I think the concern is, do they have to get that large number of career experience credits? They do not. It's staggered to that it's achievable for them to get this year. So for students rising into senior year next year, they can get the requirement for this year and the requirement for next year. They don't have to kind of go back in time and make up 2 years worth of freshman and sophomore year ones. So it's just what they get this year and moving forward, not making up for previous years. So that's all kind of staggered.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I know one also guest asked about why we were reducing the graduation requirements in math and science.
Yep, I wrote back to that in the
okay, got
chat
it.
too. Yep.
Okay. Okay.
There's a question about French. If it was taken in 8th grade and then also taken if French 1 was in 8th grade, French 2 and 3 were taken in 9th and 10th grades, does that count for 3 years of language, or does it need to be 3 years in high school? So this is where it's a little tricky. We do not award credit for middle school courses. So in that scenario, if it's French 1 in 8th grade and French 2 and 3 in the high school, that would be 2 credits of French. But the student would have 3 experience years of French, so they would have 3 years of learning French under their belt. On a transcript, they would see only two graded experience credits, or excuse me, 2 graded credits of French. Middle school courses do not count for high school credit. Oh yeah, okay. I see the question on the for the math and the science. So yeah, there was conversation about for all of our departments taking a look. We wanted to take a look at 28 credits overall. We found that our high school was pretty much like having very little wiggle room at all in our schedule for students to really kind of build out their schedule and take a different variety of courses. Overall and historically, our students far and away take more math and sciences than anything else. So our math and science, kind of looking historically, what we found was that we had more students kind of getting through up to senior year in math, for example, and lining up and taking calculus. But what we were finding was a lot of our students were leaving and going to their next step and not needing the calculus, and feeling like that's we're taking it, they're struggling in it, and not needing it for their next step. So opening up the flexibility was the name of the game for that reduction. Believe me, it's not it's not going to be as simple as take algebra 1, take algebra 2, take geometry and be done. Far and away, we're going to have students still push there. We're going to have a lot more students who have the opportunity to double up, and explore more math, or go the statistics route, or be able to take the AP Stat along with calc, if they're more of a math and science mind than not. So to be able to reduce there was opening up flexibility in the schedule, and it really kind of came down to that. So looking at our historic numbers here, like even without and kind of like seeing where our students lined up, we're not concerned that our students are going to take less. We know they're going to be signing up for our math and sciences across the board.
Just case in point, I know we reduced our graduation requirements to 26 in July, I think, of this past summer. And every single junior kept the classes that they were requesting. None of them wanted to drop out of the classes. And so when I did junior meetings with them this past December and January, some of them on paper only need 1.5 credits to graduate, or 4.5 credits, but they're all going to elect to take a lot more than that just to make sure that they take the classes that they're passionate about. For foreign language, so there's really an option of like a foreign language between 1 all the way up to AP. And so what does happen is if a student is on the trajectory or really has the goal of taking an AP language, then they really should start their freshman year in Spanish 2 or French 2. That being said, there are a lot of students who are starting in those levels because they had experience in the middle school. But what we're finding is that by the time they are in Spanish 3 or French 3, it really feels like an honors level course. And so is there's Spanish 4 and French 4, which is an honors level course. But Spanish and French 3 are very difficult. So we want to make sure that students are making an informed decision when they're picking what world language. So if they do not have a goal to take AP Spanish, and they're maybe successful in Spanish 1 right now in the middle school, but they maybe could use a little bit more growth in that area, then we do recommend them repeating that Spanish 1 again and then getting to Spanish 2, because otherwise we've had many students come to us with Spanish 3 or French 3 with some difficulty.
There's a question about if there's a commitment to confirm schedules prior to the end of the school year. That's the course verification step, which happens near the end of March and by the beginning of April, where our counselors will be able to confirm with the student and give the parents a last look to say, are these the courses that you are selecting, or are these your backup selecting in order? So they can kind of go to work on that when we build the master schedule and have those choices ready to go. So that's the verification process that was discussed earlier.
And last year it was available on Sapphire for parents and families to view at home, but we also printed one out for every single student and gave it to their, I think, first period class, their homeroom teacher. So they had a hard copy of what classes that they were asking for. And then if they were missing anything, for example, if they were missing 5 alternates, we would highlight it and star it and say, you need to pick 2 more alternates, or so we did make sure that we'll continue doing that again this year as well. I only reach out to parents in the summer if I'm not hearing back from the student in a timely fashion. So usually I will give them maybe 24 to 48 hours. But what we typically do is we do our seniors first. And I do not like moving on to the next grade level until I finish the first grade level that I started. So obviously they've been our student for 4 years. So they take priority with making sure they get into the classes that they are asking for. So if there's any conflict, I reach out to the seniors. If I don't hear back, then usually I will either CC a parent on the 2nd or 3rd email request, or I will just give a call home.
There was also a question earlier about confirming that 8th graders need a 92 in a class to be placed in the honors 9th grade for that class, and that is correct. To move from an academic course to an honors course, students need to earn an average of 92% in that class, and they need to maintain at least an 83 to remain in the honors path.
Thank you.
Thanks, Casey. There's a question about will confirmation be given to classes they're actually placed in before the end of the school year? We'll do everything we possibly can there to make that happen, especially if it's a if it's like an AP class that might require summer work, we certainly don't want that to happen to any student where they're completing work and find out that hey, you're actually not in that class or didn't get it or couldn't get that. So we're certainly aware of that and don't want that to happen to students. So we'll do everything in our power to not have that happen. Last year, just so you know, we're shooting for, and this is not the hard fast deadline for it, but typically high school schedules would typically go out about 2 weeks before the start of the school year. Last year we were able to release them on July 17th, I believe. So we got them out well in advance in the middle of the summer, which is a nice testament to our counselors working there, because they wanted to be able to focus in where the beginning of the school year, instead of having kind of like students out of classes and kind of lined up in the counselor office to ask questions or maybe fix if there was a mistake or things like that. They were able to focus in on students who might be starting for the first day or transferring in for the first day or just registering for classes for the first day, because we did have quite a few students in that scenario this year. So we're working on making that as smooth as possible. All right. So seeing no more from the chat, we want to thank so many of you for joining us this evening, and really appreciate it. And like we said, we're going to post this as quickly as we can get it downloaded and turned around. We'll get this posted, certainly in the next day or so, so we can have that reference tool for you all. On the screen still is our email addresses, and I want to thank Kate and Casey. Great first presentation there, Casey, and welcome to the team. And we will, as promised, open up in the coming weeks an opportunity for our families to maybe come in person, potentially do kind of a coffee and chat with Mrs. Rogers to introduce themselves and just kind of get to know and come in and say hi. But we wish you all well, and thank you so much for joining us on a Wednesday evening. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good night.